Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Noah, which is the latest film from Darren Aronofsky. Is definitely a different kind of blockbuster and a different kind of biblical epic than we're really used to. It shows a director that wants more from a big budget blockbuster, but one that isn't demanding more, is just taking more and doing it without really thinking about it. He's not being a craftsman in this at all. He just feels that this is how you should make kind of a big blockbuster movie. But at the same time, it's very different from most biblical films, which when you think of biblical films, most of the time it's far more about faith than filmmaking, which makes for pretty terrible things that you see on like Sunday mornings and then change the channel pretty quickly if you're not a believer. A film that takes a fantasy element to a story from the book of Genesis from the Old Testament and the story of Noah, and really explores him as a character and as a villain and as a full human being while still being over the top and pretentious about it. It's really the gamut and kind of a bloated, interesting, moving, and pretentious movie all in one, fully engrossed in kind of a Darren Aronofsky vision, but kind of like a blockbustery version of what that is. The story of Noah's Ark is pretty universally known, but this film goes deeper into it. And I'm not really a very religious person, but I didn't actually know how it was connected to Cain and Abel, and how there was Cain, Abel, and Seth. So Cain killed Abel, and Seth went on, and his descendants, and Noah is a descendant of Seth, and Cain went on and built these industrialized cities with these angels who were sent to Earth because they were trying to interfere with the humans and Adam and Eve because they cared so much. So Seth's descendants, they live off the land and try to do good by the Creator. Cain's descendants make all these huge industrialized cities and are kind of terrible people because the whole thing is based off of, the murder of his brother. And this film especially emphasizes the brother versus brother murder in Cain and Abel. It almost feels like, a lot of people point this out, and I very much agree with it. This film acts like that's the bigger sin than what happened in the Garden of Eden. It has a higher emphasis on murder than anything. That's one of the worst things you can do in this film. Although that is realistically one of the worst things you can do. It shows how, the world was kind of this evil, murky, always overcast, dark place. The color tones are always very dark, and how Noah pretty much had to make this ark because God was going to cleanse it because it was horribly evil at the time. And it's really only one continent. It's Pangea, basically, is where everyone's living, because they show you a shot of the Earth from space several times, which is interesting. It combines cosmic ideas and some scientific ideas with religion, and then he builds the ark, and you know what happens next. Darren Aronofsky is known for his protagonists being, whether it's Black Swan or Pi or The Fountain or The Wrestler, they're these characters who are kind of crazy. They're single protagonists, so in a way he's perfect to do the story of Noah, because Noah gets crazier and crazier with this mission of God and trying to do the right thing. And Noah really believes that man should be completely wiped out and his family will be the last ones. When they get on the ark, he becomes evil, and you're not sure what to think of him because you've rooted for him for so long. And Russell Crowe does probably one of his best performances I've seen from him in years. He used to be a very good actor. Now he's a bloated, hammy actor, but in this he really knew how to play it. Darren Aronofsky works so well with certain actors who other directors I don't think can work as well with. Really, it's a very multi-layered performance. He's good, he's evil, he's drunk. They don't do too much drunk stuff. He's really this very complex character, and you really run the gamut with him. Goes through something with him just as an audience, because you kind of follow him for a little bit and then you feel weird that you kind of liked him as an audience. Russell Crowe knows how to play him he used bombast in the right way to get it to work for him, and not in an inappropriate way that's hammy. He seemed to know how to really act, which was kind of surprising, really. And Ray Winstone plays Cain, plays the perfect kind of broad villain, but so easily hateable, but it was such a great actor, kind of character actor, conviction to him. He felt so kind of evil. He's the guy who did the first murder. He cannot be defeated. He defies anyone to to go against their king, and he conveys that so well. It might be very broad in a lot of sense, but I think he found the perfect way to play it. I didn't know Logan Lerman was in this until I saw it. I was kind of surprised. He was alright. He does play his character in a very childish way that you should. And Emma Watson and Jennifer Connelly have moments where they're very good, and then have moments that are kind of almost laughable. I mean, this film is very uneven, and I wouldn't really put it as highly as the rest of Aronofsky's filmography. I expected maybe more of Darren Aronofsky, the auteur, and less of kind of his version of what a blockbuster film would be. I just want a Darren Aronofsky film that costs $100 million. And certainly this has a stamp all over it, but it felt like, especially the cinematography, this is shot by Matthew Labitque, whose name I probably didn't pronounce right, who shot like Black Swan and The Fountain and most of Darren Aronofsky's films. But he's also shot, believe it or not, Iron Man and Iron Man 2 and Cowboys and Aliens. And you get more of that from him than you get usually from a Darren Aronofsky film. And for me, really, I didn't like that as much. Certainly they got the color tone right, but it didn't feel as personal, as intense. Russell Crowe seemed to be able to bring that intensity without the cinematography bringing it as much. But if you see Black Swan, it feels very intimate, it feels very intense. You couldn't be entirely intimate because as much as it's about Noah, it's also about his family as well. And they do have certain sequences like the story of creation with the quick cutting and everything, and it feels not very CG. It feels very almost like stop motion, and quick cutting with the animals and how they talk about the first murder, and everything that's a montage sequence in this is just incredible. I mean, that's some of the best stuff in the movie and shows really what Darren Aronofsky can do. Very awe-inspiring, beautiful how he did a lot of these montages and really made it come alive and feel fantastical. There's a fight where all the humans are trying to get on the Ark and these rock angels are trying to fight them, and it just felt like a shot out of Lord of the Rings. And that's like not something I want from Darren Aronofsky. And he went from being this small art house director to being a pretentious older director. And this feels more like an older director than it feels like a director where he is in his filmography. It feels like somebody who gained this reputation and no one can take it away from him. Certainly it was a big dream project, and it feels like a director's big bloated dream project that he had to do. But is this like where I wanted Aronofsky to go? He wants to go where he wants to go. He doesn't want to go in the confines of Hollywood, and you know, he's turned down superhero movies, he's turned down big budget movies. He just wanted to do this Noah film. But it felt like he was maybe trying to be too much of a blockbuster director and not really knowing how to refine that. There's a difference usually between when you have a director who was a smaller art house director and their first big budget film and their second big budget film. And regardless of what you think of Christopher Nolan, I think we'll all agree that Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, when you look at The Dark Knight, it's far better shot. He has a bigger control over the action sequences. He seems to know what he's doing a lot more with a bigger budget. And in this, he is breaking the rules in a lot of ways. And he's being a lot more daring than a lot of directors. But it also feels like he's more confined. That fight sequence was a little odd. And even the rock creatures look like kind of the Transformers. In some ways, they look like they're stop motion, but their design looks like they're the Transformers. I feel a little let down. It's like I liked the original crazy Darren Aronofsky, and I feel like he's so pretentious at this point. He felt like he had the reputation to pull this off. And it is a big, bloated, you know, different kind of movie, and I like it for being different. And I was thinking, you know, it was very well directed, but directed in kind of like, do you really like Gangs of New York? It had some good ideas or good things about it. It's incredibly ambitious, but it's just not really this amazing epic kind of turn in his career that I think he definitely feels like it is. It feels like it's different from him, but I don't know if I really wanted him to go there, and as a viewer, the proof on the screen didn't make me want him to go there. Seeing him become kind of just a pompous, very good studio director isn't exactly really where I wanted to see him go. And I like kind of its ideas, and I like a lot about it, but I don't really think it's as a whole a good movie. It's an interesting, very different, very pompous movie that takes on the blockbuster and comes at it and says, you know, we can have all these ideas. And Aronofsky is pretentious enough to believe that and not be kind of a craftsman. But I think I prefer a craftsman, really, to kind of such an uneven film where I'm surprised by the things he'll make these characters do, he'll put us through as an audience, the horrors we'll have to see. Flood is almost kind of morally ambiguous in a lot of ways. There's some scenes in this that look right out of like some D.W. Griffith Intolerance. He really wants you to see that not everyone who died in the flood was necessarily evil, but they got cleansed anyway. And it makes you kind of look for more answers within it, because the God in this film doesn't answer. It's a very ambitious movie, and sometimes ambition doesn't turn into a good story, but it's an interesting thing to watch. With all the promise of Darren Aronofsky, I feel like I kind of wanted something a bit even crazier. When it would try to be big budget movies I'd seen before, I was disappointed. But when it did things that those films could never even imagine, I was completely wrapped up in it and surprised and awestruck. It's like half like just surprised at what he's doing with this story, and half apathy at the modern blockbuster. I feel usually more intensely about his films, and I think the apathy is holding me back from being as in love with Noah as I usually am. But the surprise in it is probably what I'll remember a lot more. So if you have seen Noah and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.